Hello, you guys. Welcome to Talk About It Thursdays. I am your host, Karen Bailey. Let me know when you guys are on and we will get started for today. I hope you guys are having an amazing week. Looks like spring is here. Whether that means allergies, I know that's meaning a lot of yard work for me already. And we've been getting quite a bit of rain, so everybody's grass is beautiful, but it is indeed some work. Hey, Shakita. Hey, boo. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. Tell your mom and everybody I said hello and much love. You guys, last week we talked about snatch it back. We were talking about taking back everything that the enemy has stolen from you. So I hope you got something out of that. I hope you got your power back. I hope you got your enthusiasm back and you decided to not just let things happen to you. To take back what the enemy has stolen from you. Get your life in order. Work on those things that you can change and pray to God for those things you cannot. You know, some things you have to put in God's hands, but there's never a time to be idle. When you know the enemy's running rampant in your life, do something about it. And sometimes that thing that we do about it is prayer. Prayer is your weapon. Praise is your weapon. So use those things, you know, whenever you feel like you're under attack, whenever you see the hand of the enemy on your life. Don't just sit back and take it. You're a child of God. You have a right to fight back. So that's what we talked about last week, was basically snatch it back. Stop being so complacent. Stop being so okay with things not going the way that you know your life is supposed to. Do what you got to do. Make things happen. And like I said, always include God and give it to God. Let's go ahead and get started today, you guys. My topic today is ride or die. You know, there was a year where that's all we heard. I'm a ride or die chick. That's my ride or die. You know, people were using that just like it was nothing, throwing that out, you know, promising to be there, you know, no matter what, promising to ride it out, no matter how bad it was, you know, and that was something that people were pledging their loyalty to. And what I want to talk about today is sometimes you can misplace your loyalty. Sometimes you can pledge your loyalty to the wrong thing, to the wrong person, to the wrong circumstance. So you have to weigh those things out before you open your mouth and say you're going to be a ride or die. Because those words have power. So understand that. And that everything and everyone is not supposed to have a permanent position in your life. You know, we have to understand that just because we want somebody to stay does not mean that they're supposed to stay in our lives. And we got to learn. I say this all the time because I've had to learn it for myself and I'm still learning, you know, not to be offended when people come in and come out of your life. A lot of times that's God's doing. You know, people are there for their season or there for whatever assignment in your life, but you got to learn how to let people move on and do what they got to do, because a lot of times they're not always meant to stay. So understand, being a ride or die is more than just some slang that we use, something that sounds good on paper, sounds good on social media. There's a lot that goes with that. And the sooner we evaluate who's supposed to be a constant in our lives, hey Tiante, and who's not, imagine how much more peace you would have if you stopped trying to make everybody in your life be what you want them to be. Everybody can't always be there and be what you want them to be. We're all growing, we're all learning, we're all walking our own path. So don't be so attached to people that you don't know how to let them go, because sometimes you're holding them back and sometimes they're in your way. So this ride or die stuff, hey Latoya, this ride or die stuff, you know, people don't think about what they're saying when they're saying it, because it may not be meant for you to ride with them. Just like on your spiritual walk, there are people that are gonna be there for a little while, but then there are seasons in your life, there are levels you're gonna go to that everybody can't go with you. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not them being disloyal, that's them staying in their lane. And we need to allow people to stay in their lane. More chaos, more confusion, more misunderstanding comes from trying to pull people into an area where they don't belong or where they don't fit. And sometimes we do that for our own selfish reasons because we want to move forward, but we don't want to do it by ourselves. Well, sometimes it's required for you to step forward and step forward alone. We all know God has got our back, but sometimes you have to let people go so that you can get to where God is trying to get you to. Okay? And the sooner we realize who's supposed to be there and who's not, you can learn to walk in confidence. Your emotions will be stabilized. Imagine how much better you could get along with other people if you wouldn't try to put them in a box. If you let everybody, if your friendships were about seeing your friends grow to be what they're supposed to be rather than what they can do for you, how loyal they are to me, all of those type of things. We've got to start looking at people especially that we care about, and understand that everybody's on a journey. And we have to allow people to grow at their own pace and stop trying to control everything. Okay? Because your emotions will be more stable if you do that. And then everybody will be able to be who they are. They won't have to pretend just to keep from hurting your feelings. They won't have to act like they're comfortable somewhere when they feel a tugging on them to move on, to branch on, to do something different. Wouldn't it be nice for somebody to be able to come to you and say, you know what, I love you, but I feel like my time in your life is up. I've got some other things I need to do, and I'm not feeling like, you're going to be able to go with me, but I appreciate the time that we had together. What if a man told you that? Ladies, I've got all ladies on today. What if a guy told you that instead of cheating on you? Do you know how much better your life would be if he would just tell you that he's no longer all in the relationship rather than you having to find out the hard way? When we try to put people into the boxes that we want, we cause them to have to lie to us sometimes to keep from hurting our feelings, to keep from breaking our heart. But what if we gave everybody the freedom to honestly be themselves? That's when you're a true ride or die. When you can say, I'm with you whether you stay with me or you have to move on. That's a true ride or die. When I don't get an attitude just because you've outgrown our friendship. I don't get mad at you because you're not my forever boo, but we can still be friends. We can still get along. We can still check on each other from time to time. That's a true ride or die. It can't be by your terms only because you're not the only human being in the situation. So just think about those things. Learn to allow people to be who they need to be to grow, because we're all trying to be the best person we can be. And sometimes being loyal to other people, being loyal to places, being loyal to situations is holding us back. It's just like family. I'm gonna give an example. Sometimes we can be so loyal to our family when we're being tugged. God is really trying to move us in another direction. But because all of our families here, we don't want to leave our family. This person's getting older, that person is sick, this, that, and the other. Sometimes you miss out on your own life, your own opportunities, because you're trying to stay loyal, to your family or loyal to a situation. God is going to take care of that situation. All he wants you to do is step out in faith and move where he tells you to go. But a lot of times we have that misplaced loyalty because we don't want to let the family down. We don't want to let our friends down. We don't want, people to talk about us and say we don't care, this, that, and the other. You have got to learn that you only have one life. You've got to walk in your own lane. Because at the end of the day, when you do all that sacrificing, it can lead to resentment. And then a lot of times you look back and you have so much regret from not moving when it was unctioned in your spirit to move. Okay? And then let's talk about misplaced loyalty. Misplaced loyalty can bind you for years, even decades. When you're loyal to a place or to other people or organizations, that don't appreciate your loyalty. They don't even respect your loyalty. And sometimes they don't even acknowledge it. Have you ever been there for somebody? Everybody probably can identify with this. Have you ever been there for somebody? You feel like you've been there for them through thick and thin. And then the one time you can't be there, how they seem to forget all about what you've been doing. That's happened to me on more than one occasion. And then you're hurt and you're in your feelings because you remember all the times that you were there. Maybe you were just tired this time. Maybe something came up. But they're not trying to hear your excuses because they expect your loyalty. They don't respect it. They don't have an appreciation for it. They just expect your loyalty. And sometimes that happens in families. They just expect you to do things. You're not supposed to get tired. You're not supposed to have something else to do. When they say something is going on, you're supposed to drop everything that you're doing and be there. That's that misplaced loyalty where you put a value on what everybody else wants you to do, just because you're trying to save face or just because you don't want anybody upset with you. You're not doing it because that's what you want to do. Hey, chick, because that's what you want to do. That's that misplaced loyalty that some of us get caught up in. I've got caught up in that so many times. But as I'm getting older, I'm starting to really beat to my own drum. I'm learning that it's okay to say no. It's okay to do things different than everybody else. I don't have to go along with you if that's not the way that I'm led. And I've gotten to the point where I don't care if you get mad about it. I don't care if you get upset. I don't care if you talk about me. I don't care because I have to have peace in what I do and the way I'm doing it. And a lot of things I do now, especially when it comes to family, and God knows we don't always get to pick our families. We have those good family members, then we have those others that test our Holy Ghost. And when I've got to deal with the ones that test my Holy Ghost, I'm learning how to bob and weave and work my way through so that the time that I do spend with them, I don't end up with a headache. My blood pressure's not up. I'm not stressed out. I don't leave with ill feelings. I have to find my own personal way of dealing with difficult people. And nobody can tell you how to do that. That's an individual thing. You got to learn your way of being able to deal with difficult people and still stay in your character. That's right, chick. And still stay in character so you're not compromising who you are. Stop going along with the flow. I don't care if it is your family. I don't care if it's your mama, your dad, your sisters, whatever. You don't have to do what they do just to get along with them. You do what's going to be best for you, what's going to be the best way for you to keep your character intact and the best way for you to be able to have peace, for you to enjoy whatever interaction you got to do, and learn how to walk away. Learn when it's time to go. I got exit strategies for days, y'all. I don't play. Now my peace is so valuable. Anytime I feel like you taking my temperature up, hey, Miss Christelle, you taking my temperature up, I'm going to make a quick exit. You're going to get one of them quick little hugs. Girl, I got to go. It was good seeing you. I love you, blah, 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 blah. And I'm gone. Before you know it, baby, I'm going down the street. Because I would rather do that than stay in a position to let you vex me and get me out of my character and upset my spirit man. I'm not willing to allow anybody to do that. But you've got to find your own way. And it's nothing wrong with that. Don't feel like you're doing something wrong when you're preserving your peace. That's that misplaced loyalty. Because people will make you feel bad about loving yourself. And I refuse to allow anybody to make me feel bad about loving myself. I spent many years loving everybody else more than myself. And now I've learned how to flip that thing around, because the more I love myself, the more I can love you. That's how it works. When you keep sacrificing yourself, before you know it, you won't even love yourself. You won't even know yourself. So be careful of that misplaced loyalty. Be loyal to you before you're loyal to anybody else. Make sure you're loyal to the star player, which is you. Okay? Some people will die a mental or spiritual death long before they experience a physical death. That's what happens with that misplaced loyalty. Something inside of you is dying when you're loyal to something that's not loyal to you, or you're loyal to something just out of obligation. Something on the inside of you is going to slowly die. You know, even I think about this, even being loyal to a church, simply because that's where you've been, that's where you're a member. You know, I talk about my personal stuff, y'all. You know, if you're not being fed there, if the spirit is not right there, if you're not in a position in that church to where you feel like this is where I need to be, this is helping me be a better person, it might be time for you to go. But people will make you feel bad about leaving. And that's that misplaced loyalty. Because is it more important to please God, or is it more important to please them church folks or that pastor? You know, you've got to decide who's more important in your life. And a lot of times it's hard to walk away from those things. It's hard to love yourself sometimes, you guys, because people put so much pressure. You know, we talk about peer pressure in kids. Baby, that don't stop with kids. It's bullies, grown bullies out in this world. It's grown manipulators out in this world. It's peer pressure, even as an adult, to do things a certain way, do what other people expect you to do. But in order for you to be a ride or die for you, you're going to have to make up your mind. I'm going to be loyal to myself first. And what's hurting me or what's not helping me, I'm going to have to leave that stuff alone. Because it's not important what they think I should be doing. It's important what God says I'm supposed to be doing. Okay? Because a lot of times people will be loyal to a person, a place, or a situation and neglect their own needs. Sometimes they even neglect their own safety. You guys, I was in 2 abusive relationships, and I literally considered staying simply because, one, it was my son's father, and I did not want to raise my son without his father. My emotions were high. I was confused. The enemy kept me confused. I had church people in my ear telling me, oh, you got to give him another chance. Well, you didn't go to the ER with me. You weren't there. You don't know what that felt like, trying to explain what happened to me to that doctor. You know, and it's so funny. You know, I remember back, you know, that night I was at the ER. My father-in-law actually took me to the ER. And I remember the doctor. He was a young doctor. And he had done some x-rays on me. He came back and he was like, I was Harrelson at that time, Miss Harrelson. He said, I don't know you. He said, but I pray this is the last time I see you here. And he just looked me so deep in my eyes to the point where I could see that he was sincere about what he said. He wasn't judging me, but he was giving me permission to be loyal to myself. He was giving me permission to love myself. Nobody had ever done that. You know, everybody has always told me, you know, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to be married, you need to do this. You know, I've heard that my whole life. People trying to direct me in the way I'm supposed to go. But in the event of me trying to please everybody, something inside of me was slowly dying. And I remember that to this day, and that's been 21 years ago. That doctor telling me, this is the last time I'm going to see you here. And it did something for me. It triggered something in me. Now, I didn't make my decision right away to get out of that marriage, but it did strengthen me to understand that I have a right to feel safe. I have a right, you know, to have my own needs met. I shouldn't have to live in fear. And sometimes women need to hear that. You know, it's not always about common sense. Sometimes people just have not been poured into. Sometimes people have not been given permission. And it just depends on how you were raised and what kind of situations you were in. I was raised in abusive situations. So that was almost second nature to me. But that was something that nobody had ever told me, is that you have a right to get out of this. You don't deserve this. And once you actually hear that and get that down in your spirit, it gives you strength in those hard times when you're trying to make those important decisions. And then misplaced loyalty can come from guilt. It can come from fear. It can come from tradition. Sometimes we're loyal to tradition, you guys, whether it be outdated, whether it be, non-productive, all of that. We'll stick with tradition because that's how we've always done it. And then familiarity, that gets a lot of us. We like what's familiar, whether it's good for us or not. And then emotional trauma will make you stay loyal to the wrong things sometimes. And you have to watch out. There are people that like to keep you in those type of situations simply because they can control you. So they want you to be loyal to them. And when you do things out of guilt, you give power to the person that you feel guilty to, because now they have that guilt. They know you've got that guilt, and they use that as a weapon to keep you where they want you to be. And they use that, and sometimes they use it to mentally, abuse you and to keep you close to them. So when you do things out of guilt, it can come to a loss of your own personal, mental, and emotional health. Because when you're doing something for the wrong reason, like I said before, it's going to eat away at you. Some kind of way, your spirit is slowly dying because you're not doing something from a pure heart. You're not doing it for the right reasons. You're not doing it because God led you to do it. You're doing it simply to ease your conscience or to make you feel better about whatever you did. And then also, like I said before, you're left at the mercy of the person you're being loyal to because they got that as a weapon. They know you're guilty. They can remind you of what you did, and they like to remind you that you did this. This is why I am the way I am, because you did this. Either you're going to forgive me or you're going to leave me alone. Those are my words. Anybody that can't forgive me for what I did, I need you to say goodbye to me and go on your way, because I refuse to live under an umbrella of somebody else's guilt. If I've done something, I've said I'm sorry, forgive me. Or if you're not going to forgive me, then we need to part ways. That way you don't fall into doing things out of guilt. Don't worry about what you did in your past to somebody, whether it's family. You don't owe them anything. You don't owe your family anything. Whatever you did in your past, you got to move past it. You got to start looking forward, because just like any other person, your family should be the first person to forgive you. But if family can't forgive you, you're going to have to just shake the dust off your feet, and you're going to have to keep it moving. And then emotional trauma can lead to misplaced loyalty. Sometimes emotional trauma, just like I said, I was raised up in an abusive home. Not so much my mother abusing us, but she was in abusive relationships. And it led to codependency. Sometimes you'll hold on to somebody that you know is not good for you just because of what they can do for you. A lot of times people don't understand what abused children go through. Abused children, and then you wonder when the social worker's trying to take them away while those kids are clinging and screaming and crying for their mama and reaching back and stuff after their mama just burned them with an iron or just beat them with a extension cord, this, that, and the other. It's a mind thing. It's a mind thing. It's that loyalty. And sometimes parents that abuse their children, when it comes time to testify against them, the children won't even testify because all they could see is that's my mother or that's my father. That's that misplaced loyalty because they can't think past the fact that this person is who I'm supposed to be with. And sometimes in relationships, we can get so connected to to people, so connected to people. And especially, when we're intimate with somebody, that creates a whole new connection. And that's really why God talks about, not fornicating, and we're all guilty of that. But I understand that now, because that connection, that intimate connection, it brings something close together, and it's hard to break that apart. And God doesn't want you so connected to somebody that when he says, let them go or get away from him, that you're going to defy him because you're just so connected to that person and you can't see yourself, without them. That's that connection that God doesn't want you to have with anybody but him. And that's why he ordained that for marriage, because that's something he said, okay, that can be your husband here, but I'm your spiritual husband. Those are the only two husbands you're supposed to have. And so that connection is just that strong, and people become dependent sometimes even on people that hurt them, even on people that over and over again promise not to do something, and they do it over and over again because they're so emotionally connected and they feel like they can't make it without that person. In a domestic abuse situation, a lot of times we judge that abused woman because we're like, why doesn't she leave? Why does she keep letting them come back? This, that, and the other. It's that emotional trauma, you guys. It's that codependency. She really doesn't think that, yeah, stronghold. That's right, Latoya. She really doesn't think that she can do what she needs to do without him. She doesn't think she can make it without him. Guess what, you guys? What do you think he's been saying to her? How do you think he's been grooming her before he started abusing her? It starts with that verbal abuse. I've been in that situation. I've had things said to me to try to break me down and make me feel like I was not strong. In my second abusive marriage, that's what he did. He started with mental abuse, trying to break me down because he saw that I was strong. Everything, every opportunity he had, it was a problem. Everything he had to put his mouth on, everything I tried to do was being sabotaged. That's how they break you down. And if they can get it in your mind that you're weak and that you can't make it without them, then they begin to have total control. It's almost like brainwashing, you guys, because they remind you that you're nothing. And before long, if you start hearing that enough, you will start believing that you're nothing. And that's what happens to those women that are in those domestic abuse situations. Some of them don't even have anybody to go to, and a lot of times the way the abuser gets you is he isolates you. He makes you stay away from people. Why do you stay away from them? Living witness, because I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed of how he talked to me. I was embarrassed, of things other people knew that he was doing. I was embarrassed. I couldn't tell my family anything because I didn't want them to know. Didn't want them talking about me. I didn't want them telling everybody everything. He thrived on that. And that's what abusers do. They get you to yourself to where you don't have a support system. And once they can finally get you without some help, you're at their mercy. And this is what these women have gone through. That's why that emotional trauma will make you loyal to something that's hurting you. It will. And a lot of times people that have been sexually abused, especially early on, and you wonder why these girls on the street are loyal to these guys that are pimping them out, it's because that's all they feel like they got. That's the only person they feel like really loves them and cares about them. It's all a mind thing. It's all about brainwashing. And we have to be so careful about not judging other people because you don't know what they've gone through. You don't know what's happened to them to get them to this point. So we just need to pray for somebody and try to offer our assistance if we can, when we see them in a emotionally traumatic situation that's causing them to be loyal to something that's hurting them. Drugs, same thing. Sometimes people have gone through so much pain, the alcohol, the drugs is the only thing that gives them a sense of relief. And that's why they're always chasing that. That's why they're always needing more and more and more because their body's getting used to what they did last time, so they need a little bit more. So a lot of things you're loyal to, or people can be loyal to, simply because of the emotional trauma that they've experienced. And then fear is another thing that will make you loyal to the wrong people, to the wrong place, to the wrong situation. You know, somewhere in your life, the enemy planted a seed of fear. You know, and when you're afraid, you get all kinds of crazy stuff in your head. Hey, Dottie. You get all kinds of crazy thoughts in your head. You start fearing stuff that hadn't even happened. So what do? You try to cling on to what you can control. And sometimes you're loyal to something that's not even good for you, but at least you know it. You know, there's a saying that says, it's the devil that you know, which is people saying, well, I'm going to stick with this person because I know they ain't right, but at least I know them. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why stick with anybody? If they're not right, they're not right. You know, you can't go through life fearing the unknown. You can't settle for somebody that's bad because at least you know what bad stuff this one does. No, you deserve better than that. You don't have to stay with somebody just because you already know the little dirt that they do. Leave them alone. If they're not right for you, if they're not going to be a blessing to you, leave them alone. Hey, Cindy. You don't have to stay with them just to have somebody. Don't operate in fear, because once that seed is planted from whatever event that happens in your life, if you don't confront that thing and get over that fear, it'll cause you to make decisions out of fear, and you'll be dependent to things and loyal to things that are not good for you. And then whether it's from an isolated incident or a repeated instance of a bad situation, fear came in and not just took a seat, but just moved in and unpacked his bags. You know, anytime you confront your own fears, ask yourself, where did this start? When did I start being afraid of this? When did I start speaking these words out of my mouth, talking about I'm scared of this, I'm scared of that? Where did that come from? And ask God to show you where that seed was planted so that you can deal with that. You know, a lot of times we fear being talked about like it's the worst thing that can happen to you in the world. And, I used to be one of those that tried to people please people, and God took me back to where that came from. That came from me as a little girl. I tried to get along with my siblings. I did whatever they told me to do because I wanted to get along with them, because we were left alone a lot of times, and a lot of craziness happened. A lot of times, I was bullied. A lot of times I was mistreated, but I tried my best to stay in my good graces, in the good graces of my siblings, because I didn't want them picking on me. And that's where that fear came from, of fear of being talked about or fear of being mistreated. That started all the way in my early childhood. And so God is still working with me on some of those things. And now I'm to the point where, I make decisions not out of fear, but I try to make decisions out of wisdom, out of conscious thought, out of knowledge of what's going on, so much as not worrying about somebody liking me or getting along with me. A lot of times we fear being rejected. Ask yourself where that came from. Who hurt you to the point where you'll stay loyal to something just because you don't want to feel that pain again? If you've ever been mistreated or rejected, it's hard to open yourself up again. It's hard to allow yourself to be vulnerable again, but you have to confront that thing and understand that, yes, you will be rejected sometimes. And people don't tell you this to expect to be rejected. Rejection is hard because you're always surprised. I'm surprised when I get rejected. I'm like, what? What is really going on? But parents, explain to your children there are going to be times when you're not going to be liked. There are going to be times when you're going to be left out. There are going to be times when you're going to be talked about. There's going to be times where people are going to reject you, but there's nothing wrong with you. I wish somebody had that conversation with me as a child. Do you know how much stress and strain I would have been alleviated from had somebody prepared me that that's just part of life. And a lot of times we don't prepare our children or our young adults for the bad part of life, for the things that could happen. You know, don't always let them think the world is just this big wonderful place. Let them know what could happen, and let them know that if it does happen, you're going to be okay. You're going to be all right. It's going to hurt for a little while, but you're going to be okay. And people can do better when they know that these things can happen and they're not blindsided. Okay? And then those that have been abandoned in the past as children in relationships, those moms, those single moms that thought that child's dad was going to be there, that's damaging to them when that guy is no longer there, or that when he doesn't step up to his responsibility. They may act like they're okay, they don't care, this, that, and the other, but I promise you, that does something to them, and it puts a fear of abandonment in their spirit. And that's why a lot of times they choose the wrong people, and they end up going from one person to the other to the other. It's not that they're a single mother, it's that they're abandoned. They were abandoned by somebody that was supposed to love them, that was supposed to be there for them. Okay? And then tradition is another one of those things we stay loyal to. You know, people stay loyal to what they've always done. They can't even open their mind to anything new. Sometimes tradition is just a way to control your thinking. People like to throw out tradition and try to tell you how things are always done because they don't want you to grow. They don't want you to change. And make sure whatever you're doing in your life, that it's having the desired effect that you want it to have on your life. Don't just do something because that's what you've always done. Don't do it because that's what your family has always done. It might have worked for them, but it might not work for you. And that's okay. You know, we're not cookie cutter people. We're individual. God made each and every one of us different. So what works for your sister over here, quit trying to follow suit after everybody else. Ask God to show you your own individual walk. What you need to be doing, not what everybody else is doing. That's why you have to be careful about social media. You know, just like this topic, ride or die, you know, everybody was everybody's ride or die chick, this, that, and the other. Half them people weren't even friends by the end of the year. Half of those marriages ended in divorce. All these people professing all this ride or die stuff. Be careful about what you're saying. Know what you're talking about when you say it. Because when you say ride or die, you mean you there for the duration. You ain't going nowhere till it ends or you end. So make sure you're careful about the words that you're saying. Okay? Some of us are loyal even to our own lives, you guys. Some of us have put up so many different fronts, and now we can't even be our true selves because we're loyal to that lie. Because we remember what we told everybody. We told everybody we were doing good. You know, we showed up and showed out. We had designer this, designer that. We had the best car. You know, all of this money I done spent, financial status. We'll be loyal to that lie that we doing that well, and we'll be charging up our credit cards, trying to floss in front of everybody and let everybody know how well we're doing. You know, why put yourself through that? Why be loyal to that? If that's not who you are, who are you trying to impress? I promise you, people don't stay impressed by you long simply because the world that we live in, there's always something greater tomorrow or down the horizon to take your little spotlight. So why put yourself in debt? Why put yourself in a situation where your credit is bad, trying to front and trying to show everybody how well you're doing? You're the only one that's got to live with you. You're the one that's going to have to pay all those bills. You're the one that's going to have to be working on their credit because all these people are calling you because you can't afford to pay them. Live your life and be honest about who you are. Stop trying to impress everybody else. Like I said, people don't stay impressed long, honey. You today's news, tomorrow they're going to be on to somebody else. And then hidden pain. Hidden pain is another thing we stay loyal to. A lot of times we'll front and try to act like we're okay, and we're dying on the inside. Something has hurt you so bad, but because you got to act like it ain't nothing, you got to act like it didn't faze you, you live with that emotional pain, and it's eating you up on the inside. Some people are living with mental disease. They're hearing things, seeing things. They can't sleep right. All of this stuff is going on, but because they're too embarrassed, they stay loyal to it. They find ways of hiding it. They find ways of keeping you from seeing when they're having an episode. Depression, same thing. We'll stay loyal to that rather than letting somebody know you need some help. Sometimes we'll suffer in silence, or we'll just go home and close ourselves behind closed doors, and then we'll go to work and we'll try to smile and try to act all friendly, this, that, and the other, and we're dying on the inside. Why be loyal to something that's hurting you when there's opportunities out here to get you some help? Mood swings, uncontrollable mood swings. I know some young ladies that are bipolar, and I can tell just as good when they're on their medicine and when they're off. But they will be loyal to that doggone disease. They will take themselves off of medicine because they don't like the way it feels. And they'll be all over the place, making everybody miserable, being destructive, can't even take care of their kids. But why are you being loyal to that? There's medication out there for a reason. Talk to your doctor. Ask them to adjust medications. You don't just stop the medication because that's what you want to do when you've got an actual disorder. Leave that to the professionals. Have a conversation and stop being loyal to doing things your own way when you're hurting yourself. And remember, the words that we have that come out of our mouth, you guys, they have power. And pledging your life to something could lead to destruction down the road if you're not careful. So be careful what you pledge yourself to, what you say you'll ride or die for. Make sure it's something that's going to be beneficial. Make sure it's something positive, and make sure you're not connecting yourself to something that could hurt you later on. And then familiarity is a cause of misplaced loyalty sometimes, simply because we get so comfortable with what we're used to. Sometimes it hurts to change. It hurts me to change sometimes, you guys. It's painful. Change is really painful sometimes, you guys. But you got to know that it's worth it. You got to know that it's worth it. And it doesn't mean, that you walk away from what's familiar. You just put what's familiar in its proper place. A lot of times familiarity is good because it gives you a reference to go back to, but use it as a reference. Don't use that as your bar, is what I'm trying to say. Don't use something familiar as your bar. Don't use that as your ending point. Oh, I'm comfortable with this. I'm good with this. I know this. Just use that as something, as a reference, so that you can push yourself further. And that's something that you can go back to. Now, I know this. How can this help me with this? Use that as a reference to help you move forward, because it's a normal process for each of us to evolve, and a lot of times people don't want you to grow. They want you to stay in the familiar because that keeps you, quote unquote, in your place. That keeps you on a certain level. And people sometimes don't like it when you're leveling up and you're leveling past them. But my thing is, if they really love you, they applaud you when you level up, and they ask for your assistance to help them move up too. That's when you know somebody's really on your side, when they can applaud you for doing what you do, for taking those extra steps, for making your life better. And then if they have the same desire, they come to you and say, hey, help me to get to where you are. I want to get where you are. I know, you know me, you know my shortcomings, help me to get to a better position. That's when somebody's really on your side. And that's what you do when you go to another level. You don't look down on anybody. You don't talk about anybody. Your job, when you take it to that next level, look back and see who you can pull along with you, that wants to come with you, that wants to do better. That's the key part. Don't drag no dead weight. Make sure they want to do better. Okay? And when we are sometimes loyal, we're loyal even to some of our past mistakes. Sometimes we are so prideful that even though we made a big decision and we know it was a mistake, we'll stay in that thing. We'll be loyal to it because we don't want to admit we were wrong. And a lot of people are in situations right now that people may have warned them about and maybe told them not to get into. And now that they've gotten into it, they're letting the enemy use pride to keep them bound into some of those situations. And pride will make you stay, and it'll make you suffer in silence. One thing I'm learning in my life to judge what I'm doing and who I'm dealing with by these 7 things. If it's not helping you, number 1, grow or mature, I'm leaving it alone. Number 2, if it's not challenging me and making me want to be a better person or making me want to level up, I'm leaving it alone. Number 3, if it's not causing me to see myself, my future self, in a better light than the person I am right now, if it's not giving me new goals, if it's not making me want to strive, if it's not making me excited, if it's not giving me expectation, I'm leaving it alone. And it's funny, you guys that claim to be interested in me, and I just went through this with a guy, if you're not consistent with me, then I know you're not for me. You can't talk to me 2 or 3 weeks and then you get quiet. That just lets me know that you were just seeing what was out there. You're not consistent. So I'm learning to allow people to show me who they are. And when they show me, if it ain't right, leave them alone. You don't wish them anything bad, but learn to let people just move on. And then another thing, if it's not helping me to walk in my purpose, if it's not helping me to be able to walk out whatever God is telling me I'm supposed to do in my life, because one thing about it, if it's not helping you, 9 times out of 10 it's hurting you. So make sure whatever you got going on in your life is helping to benefit you in a positive way, some kind of way. Number 5, if it's not helping me see the world with new eyes, if it's not opening my eyes to some things, I love learning, but I can't learn from everybody, because if you don't know how to teach me, if you don't know how to open up these eyes and make me see something beyond what I already see, you're not going to keep my attention. And then number 6, if it's not helping me to have more joy than pain, I'm not going to deal with it because I've had enough pain in my life. So I'm not going to choose situations that's going to cause me pain. If I have more joy than pain, I might ride it out with you. I might hang out with you. I might, give you another chance, or I might, try to work with you a little bit. If our interactions are more positive than negative, then there's some hope there. But if every interaction or most of our interactions are confusion and negativity, that's not for me. And I'm learning to pay attention to that. If that energy is not, everybody have a bad day, but every day shouldn't be a bad day. You know what I'm saying? So if every time I come in contact with you, you having a bad day, then I know I don't need to deal with you, because that kind of stuff transfers. And I don't want to be a negative person after I've worked so hard to become a positive one. Being a positive person is something you have to work on every day. And it's something you have to protect with your life, because there's always somebody out there trying to see if they can trip you up. So if I have more bad days with you than good, I'm going to come to the realization that maybe I'm not the person that needs to be in your life. And number 7, that goes right along with this, if it's causing me to have more problems than peace, I'm going to leave it alone. But if being in that situation has a few little glitches here and there, but for the most part, I'm at peace with what I'm doing or where I'm going or who I'm dealing with, I understand everything's not going to be perfect. I understand there's going to be problems, here and there that you're going to have to try to work out. But if every time it's a problem, every time, it's a struggle, that might not be for you. And those are the ways that I'm looking at things in my own life to try to preserve my own peace, to try to keep my own joy, and try to make sure that I'm not just doing something out of loyalty rather than doing it for the right reason. Okay? And it's okay to make a bad choice. You learn. We all live and learn. If you make a bad choice, just don't stay in it. Recognize it for what it is, try to get the lesson out of it, but you don't have to stay in that bad choice just because you're afraid somebody's going to talk about you or you're afraid of how it's going to look if you get out of that situation. You have got to love yourself enough to get out of anything that is going to hurt you or that's going to cause detriment to you, because when you're destroyed or when you're hurting, you can't help anybody else. Okay? And your love for yourself has to be bigger than the whispers and the rumors, the disappointment of others, the fear of the unknown, your insecurities and your codependencies, what you may lose or have to sacrifice by walking away. That's how much you must love yourself. Those things can't be bigger than the love you have for yourself. It's okay to lose, because you know what? Whatever you lost, you can get it back. I ain't never lost nothing I haven't been able to get back. My sacrifices have never been so bad to where I look back and say, you know what? I should have stayed in that bad situation. I was doing better when I stayed in that. I've never had an opportunity or an instance where what I sacrificed would have been worth me going back. So think about that, you guys. Learn to love yourself more. Okay? And then my final thought is, while you say you're somebody's ride or die, even though that sounds good, it carries a lot of weight that most human beings will never be able to carry, simply because you're human. And that's why God wants a relationship with you. That's why your Heavenly Father is truly the only ride or die that there is. God has already promised us that He will never leave us or forsake us, that there's no place we can go that He can't find us. He's there with you, whether you make good decisions, bad decisions, whatever you do. And then He's already died for us by sending His Son. So He's already proven that He keeps His word and that He cannot lie. So you guys, I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have an amazing week. And I want to put this out here, and I hope my sister doesn't mind. We've got a sister, one of the founding members of this group, who's in the hospital, Miss Sandra Bailey Crow. And I really need your prayers for her. She is a shining light, and she's going through some health challenges. So please, you guys, keep her lifted up in prayer, and I know she will appreciate you guys. Thank y'all so much for watching, and God bless you. Talk to y'all later. All right, bye-bye.